Sorry about that. So 134.5 league session. This is on the league session. Track temp varies from 93 to 96 depending on the cloud coverage. So mid 90s track temp. I think 30% humidity, something like that. Yeah. So track temp's 95, 30% humidity, very low wind. It's just a hot track, but let's dive into this. So you're going to brake just before the 100 board, and you're going to try to get all your speed scrubbed in a straight line. Get the majority of your braking done up top on top of the hill, and then pull it back and just trail brake all the way through until you're about to hit apex and go back to power. If you hold the brake on this car too heavy, it's going to want to push deep. And if you brake too late, same thing, car's going to want to push deep. It's not going to want to rotate on you. So that's why I suggest braking around that 125 meter to about 50-60%. And then once you start to cross this line, the 50 meter board, then you can start to taper that brake pressure down just enough to keep the front end biting and keep the car compliant until you're ready to go back to power. Turn one is a bit of a hit or miss in this car because it doesn't have a lot of grip. So if you don't nail it correctly, you can lose a lot of time. I did a lot of practicing with this corner, working out where the best braking point was, how to take the line, because the line is so different. Driving this car is so much different than a GT3 or even a GT4. It can't take corners the same way because it has less aero, just less mechanical grip. So you kind of have to attack corners a certain way. I found a couple of corners on here I was taking in a completely different way than say a GT3, but we'll get to those. Power all the way down. There's some compression down here, but beware going to fourth in this car. If the tires are cold and you really aggressively hit fourth when you're getting any bit of compression or bouncing off this curbing, there's a potential for spinnage. I think on my first running lap, I actually kicked fourth and spun right around here. I think those might actually be my my tire tracks, but I'm going to brake in between the end of the grass and the 50 board, and I'm going to brake straight and go all the way down to second when the tires are cold. Coming out of this turn in second, when you go to third, the back end can kick out. So actually the first 3-4 laps I was staying in third around this hairpin, but once the tires get up to temperature, second is absolutely no problem, and it is much faster. So initial brake pressure is pretty high, maybe that 70-80%, and it's a slow taper off. You don't want to hold peak pressure for too long. It's going to cause the car to push or overslow itself, and then you're having to get to power before you reach apex, and you've ruined your whole turn. And I like to, instead of holding a very tight line on the curbing, I actually prefer to kind of diamond it off a little bit, because the power in this car, if you are on curbing a little bit too much and you go to full power, it kind of can upset the car. And then going to third, obviously with shifting in this car, it can cause the back end to kick out. So what I liked to do was hit it and then kind of diamond it off, go back to power, unwind the wheel to be able to go to third. Because if you want to be on this side of the track over here, but if you're cutting over too much if you have too much wheel input to the right when you switch to third, the car can kind of kick and just lose some momentum. When the tires are warm, it's not that big of an issue, but it can cause traction control, and you can lose some momentum. It's very light braking, very early, very light braking here for this corner. around the 50 board, 40%, and just kind of hold it. The off tracks on this turn are very weird, very forgiving on entry, really. I mean, you can see I push pretty wide, and I do not have an off track there. That's pushing it pretty far, and cut over. Just get back over to the track as soon as you can. But let's watch this in cockpit in full speed. A 30-40% brake. Hold it till apex, back to power, push wide, use all the available track. If you're not using the track, you're not getting time. Here's a turn where normally you feel like you would want to brake deep and then cut in to be able to really aggressively hit that late apex and get a good drive out. This car doesn't turn. So I found there were laps where I would try to brake a little bit deeper and then use that typical, say, GT3 or radical line and do that late apex and really drive up and out of the corner. I found it better to brake a little bit earlier, no more than 60%, and just slowly taper it off and kind of hug it tight. Because like I said, the car's not gonna. If you're over here, the car's not gonna want to turn. You're putting a lot of ill will input in. It's not rotating, and you're just losing momentum that you could be having by keeping a little bit tighter line. So turn in normal, or turn in a little bit earlier than a GT3. Really hit that apex, which is, you really want to be around this white line. Just before this white line is really, I was a little too far inside. I wish I was about maybe 3-4 foot to the right from here, and I really could have nailed that exit. It still worked, but I had to, when I hit that curbing, I had to lift on throttle a little bit. It didn't allow me to go to full power. Not a lot of time was lost. You're going to brake at the 100 board. You're going to brake maybe, I think it was like 60%. Yeah, 60. Get that initial peak pressure and then bleed it off. Hit the pressure to get the car slowed and then bleed off and hold a very slow, very light pressure just to keep the car slowing down. You don't want to overslow it, but you want the car to continue to slow down. And then you can go back to full power. Push all the way wide, brake around the 70 meter mark here, downshift to third, really hit an early entry here. Try to focus on an early entry, because if you hit an early entry, you can be back to power sooner. I tested this corner a few times, seeing what was the best route to take, and early entry, early power was gaining 2-3 tenths every single time. Back to full power. Really use the track here. A light brake, just to get the car slowed, compliant. I would downshift to third. When did I downshift? Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say you have to, but I felt like the car just helped rotate a little bit better in third there. You probably could do fourth, but I like third. Cut the corner, back to full power. Be wary of exit right there. If you hit that grass, the car's not going to turn. Probably end up in this wall. Brake around the 70 meter board again. It's that 60-70% sweet spot. Turn in, really use all the track. I lost, I think, a couple tenths off the personal best here because I had to not get to full. I wasn't able to get to full power as soon as I wanted to. I didn't hit the apex perfect. Ideally, I would have been to full power and been on curbing, but not push wide. But going off in the grass here, scrub some speed. These momentum cars will kill you on time if you hit grass. It just slows the car down too much. About the 75 meter board again. Again, that 60 to 70 peak pressure, slow bleed off, back to full power before back to power, not to full power, but back to power before the apex, just to be able to keep momentum going. If you were to wait until here for power, you're losing 3/10, 4/10 down this stretch. So key is early power delivery for this track to keep your momentum up. Even if it's not full power, any power is better than none. And that is a 134.5 around Brands. This one's going to be a tricky one with the M2s and the Radicals, but yeah, I would recommend. Hopefully more people can get in a practice session so we can really have y'all practicing being next to each other on track here. Watkins Glen was rough enough, but we'll see how Brands Hatch goes. So good luck.